Hello YouTube and welcome back to another Dare to Game video. Today we're playing Elden Ring and I'm going to be bringing you 13 tips for beginners basically. Now even though it's called that because I think these tips would all be great for anyone that's new to the game or new to any From Software games, you know, any of the Souls games. But also a lot of these tips are probably, I mean some of them at least are things that maybe everyone should hear, so it might be more accurate to call this intermediate tips or just great tips for Elden Ring or something like that. But like I said, I think beginners could especially benefit from all these tips. So I've compiled I'm trying not to just do all of the stuff that everyone else has already told you, like which class to pick for what playstyle, blah, blah, blah. Stuff like that doesn't really need to be explained. I just wanted to give you some gameplay advice for how to make this game as enjoyable as possible. So let's just start it off with the first one. And so the first tip I have here is to be sure that whenever you're exploring, no matter what you're doing, whether you're doing a mission or you're just free roaming or looking for crafting supplies or whatever, you always keep your eyes peeled for sites of grace. These things are extremely important, and you should make sure that whenever you see one, you always go, because the first time you get to a site of grace, you have to touch it. You can't just pass by it and it'll save. You have to actually stop, touch the site of grace. Once you've done that, it will act as a respawn point. It acts as a fast travel point, so you can go to your map at any point and fast travel all over the map. Those are the only way to fast travel, so you definitely need them for that. And they also serve a lot of other utilitarian purposes, such as being able to replenish your potions if you rested them or past time, get you out of combat real quick, because if you're being chased by someone, you quick go rest at the site of grace, it'll get you out of that combat. And also the most important thing, just being in this game, you're probably going to die a lot, and the more of these you have active, the closer you're going to be able to respawn to where you lost your runes and also recover them. So that's why the sites of grace are extremely important. That should be pretty obvious, but I wanted to start it off with that because more than once I've ridden past one, like with the intent of doubling back to get it, and then I die and have to ride all the way back. So definitely stop for them and discover everyone you can find. Alright, and so for tip number 2, it's going to be stick with the main story until you get here. So this place is called the Round Table Hold. You'll get here relatively early in the story. Basically, it's kind of like a little headquarters. It's as close to a home as you have in the game because the game's not really about that. But it's important to stick with the main story until you get here because there's a lot of resources and other stuff that becomes available once you have the Round Table Hold as an option to you that otherwise you won't have. And so it's very easy to get lost in the weeds in a game like this, exploring all over the place, collecting stuff, you know, whatever, specifically going after bosses. But it's smart to just stick to the main story, you know, follow the prompts that you're given, which early game there are quite a few, until you get here. Once you get here, then I say that's when you really start doing all your extra exploration and going all over the place. There's a lot of reasons why you want to be able to be here first, one of which being you can upgrade your weapons here. You can also take on side missions because there's various people here that you can talk to and they'll give you, you know, they'll tell you about things or they'll specifically ask you to do something for them. So that's great. You can also buy some great stuff, especially for the beginning of the game. There's some decent gear here that's actually a huge upgrade. If you play through the main story until this point, you're going to have your horse, you're going to have your summoning bell, so it's going to make fights a lot easier. So like I said, I know I'm one of those type of people that really likes to explore all over the place and see what a game all has to offer, but you really should stick to the main story mission until at least the point where you get to the Round Table Hold. Tip number 3 is every single time you run into a traveling merchant, and there are like, I don't know, a dozen of them scattered around the map, which is pretty big, kill them. Kill the merchant and bring their, you know, take their ball bearing is what it's called for them, and bring it here and give it to these guys. So you can see here the Twin Maiden Husks. They have a regular shop that you can purchase stuff from. Like I said, some great beginner stuff, including armor, weapons, all, you know, useful stuff. Some of this stuff is from ball bearings that I brought them, or bell bearing. But, you know, this armor and weapons and stuff is a lot of their original inventory. But you can also bring them bell bearings, which you'll get from people that have died, you know, whether, or like you might find them on people's bodies, or you might find them in chests, which is where you'll see this. So you see bell bearing one. There's a person named Saluvis, D. Rogier. All of them had inventories for things that you can buy, and if you take their bell bearing and bring it here and give it to this person, you will continue being able to buy those things, whereas otherwise you lose the ability. The reason I say to kill the traveling merchants, or isolated merchants, hermit merchants, blah blah blah, is because once you found them, if you don't have a bunch of runes on you, you may not be able to purchase all the things from them that you want to get from them, and then you might have trouble later trying to remember where they were to find them. But if you just kill them and take their bell bearing and bring it to these people, then you just come back to the hold and you can buy whatever you want from them whenever you want. So you can see we've got quite a few different merchants here that I've murdered for almost no reason, other than to make it more convenient for me to purchase things from them. So that's my third tip. Like I said, you kill them, bring their bring their bell bearings here and give them to the Twin Maiden husks. So that's tip number 3. So my 4th tip is to discover the map as quickly as possible. So typically whenever you enter a new region, look for the map fragment for that region. So you can see I've got the whole map explored. There are, for all of the above ground places at least, most of these map fragments are easy to find, and once you find them, it's going to make exploring the world a lot easier, because this map, as we all know, starts off totally covered, and it's basically impossible to accurately traverse the map. These things are usually pretty easy to locate and to reach. There's basically only 2 exceptions where it's actually kind of hard to get to the map fragment. The rest of them, you basically just ride right along the main road until you locate a plinth that looks like this. So you can see here I am in the kind of the second region, the most natural. It's over here in the Mistwoods, the second region that most people will probably wander to in their exploration. So if you can see where I am on the map, right next to this big tree, right in this corner here, you just come to a plinth that looks like this, because for all above ground regions it will look like this, and there will be something glowing on the ground right in front of it, and that's a map fragment. Pick it up and you will automatically know the whole map. Now obviously it won't mark like all of the locations and stuff for you. You have to actually physically explore those regions, those locations, and all the sites of grace and everything, but it will open up the map and make it a lot easier to navigate, especially if you're trying to use like an online map or something like that, because then you can actually use landmarks. Tip number 4, get all your map fragments as soon as you enter a new region. Make sure that's the first thing you do in that region. Just get on your horse and ride straight for it. Typically speaking, there aren't really any enemies that you can't avoid by riding full tilt on your horse, so it's a decently safe venture, and it's going to make exploring the world a lot easier. Alright, and so tip number 5 is going to be save your runes for leveling up. So the runes are the currency of this game. They are both used as experience points to level yourself up, and also to purchase basically every single thing in the game. And so early game, it's going to be very, very tempting to spend your runes buying things. So you get here to Round Table Hall, and there's actually a decent suit of Knight's Armor that looks good and actually has pretty good stats. And so it's going to be tempting, that along with all these weapons, it's going to be real tempting to spend your hard-earned runes on buying stuff. But my recommendation is definitely not to do that, especially early game, unless you're a veteran and you definitely know that you want a battle axe or something like that, or whatever, or you know that you're going to be able to get plenty. Because runes are used to level up, and leveling up is way more important than buying anything for a lot of reasons. For one thing, it's going to make the game a lot easier, it's going to make it so you can do more impressive things, and it basically is how you develop yourself in the game. And also, all of the best loot in the game can be found. It's stuff that you'll find after you kill enemies, whether they're bigger bosses, mid-tier bosses, or even like the humans running around. You'll find armor, you'll find weapons, and a lot of it is actually going to have really great stats. So don't waste your runes on this. Every single time you get enough runes to level up, make sure you're doing it. A, because it's going to make it so it's less dangerous, there's less danger of you losing your runes when you die, because when you die you only have one more life to recover those runes, otherwise they're gone forever. So if you're constantly spending them on leveling up, you don't really have as much to lose when you go into a battle. And runes are the only thing you can lose. You can't lose equipment or collectibles or anything else that's in your inventory. The only thing that you lose is runes. So definitely don't waste them on buying stuff early game. Use them to level yourself up. Alright, so tip number 6 is going to be to explore the region slowly. So you're going to start off here. This is where you first start off. And you're going to move through, you're going to find things like the Church of Ela is one of the first things you'll find. You follow this road down here, you're going to find the Gatefront Ruins. This is basically your starting area, and I honestly recommend making sure you go through real slowly. You're going to find all sorts of really valuable things. For one thing, collectibles or different resources that you're going to be able to use to craft a lot of very useful things. You're also going to be able to find rare collectibles, unique items, weapons, armor. You'll be able to find things that can be sold to give you a lot more runes, which are very useful. And so it just pays to explore slowly, not to mention all of the locations you'll discover and all of the sites of grace that it's very important to explore, to look for, otherwise you'll just miss them. So definitely take your time in each region. Don't just rush through and try to see how quickly you can explore the entire map, because you're going to miss most of the content in the game. It's not very well spelled out for you, so you really have to explore to find what this game has to offer. While you're exploring, the things that I recommend looking for the most are ruin fragments. So you're going to find these by any destroyed building and stuff. They can be used to craft some things, but they're one of my favorite things to collect just to sell, because they are worth a decent amount of runes themselves. And then golden runes. So golden runes are like the large bill currency in this game. Every single rune, you could think of it as a cent or as a dollar or whatever. Then there are a whole bunch of different sized gold runes, some of which are worth up to like 50,000 runes. So those are definitely very useful to look for. You can stack up to 999 of each of them in your inventory. So they're definitely worth picking up whenever you see them, and you're going to find them a lot if you're exploring slowly. So I've got a full stack of rune fragments. I was grinding these to get some runes, so if you see we can sell these, that's 10k runes right there. So that may not be much in most opinions, but if you see the golden runes, each one of these is worth, so the level 5 golden rune is worth 1600 runes, all the way up to the Lord's rune, which is worth 50,000 runes, or the Hero's rune 5, which is 35,000. So just given the fact that I'm pretty much out of runes right now, see how much we can make all in just one little quick sitting here. So we now have 395,000 runes in our inventory. Went from 0 to that. So they're definitely worth picking up, and you got to explore slowly if you want to find things like that. So that's tip number 6. So tip number 7 is going to be to grind this first, I like to call it the first camp area, because if you're playing the game normally and you naturally are exploring, you're probably going to come right down this main road and find this camp very early in the game. And it is a smart place to grind early game. So basically, there's a lot of reasons that like I said, I recommend for people to, if they're just picking up this game, especially if they've never played a From Software game before, or even if they've only, never played Elden Ring before. Grind this camp until it becomes just painfully easy, because it's going to do a lot of it. It's going to give you a lot of advantages. Basically, the first and probably most important advantage is it's going to teach you a lot about the combat system. It's going to teach you about the importance of stealth in this game, which is kind of new for From Software games, and B, it's also going to teach you about just general combat. So you'll definitely learn how to parry and block and all that stuff, and the importance of rolling. It's going to teach you a lot about combat, but you're also going to be able to grind out. And the more of these guys you kill, the more runes you're going to get, the more gear you're likely to find. It's definitely a great starting point for beginners in the game. So definitely take your time on this area and just reload it whenever you need to. The reason why this area is my favorite to grind, especially early game, is there's a lot of enemies, but they're all human, so none of them are crazy dangerous. And there's 2 sites of grace real close. So if you do die, you can easily respawn, get your runes, and keep going. So it's definitely a great starter area to learn combat and to level up, get new gear, and everything early game. So that's tip 7. Tip number 8 is under no circumstance should you ever sell any of your upgrading materials. So everything you see in this tab here, this bolstering materials tab up on the top, you should never sell this stuff, because it's extremely important to upgrading all of your gear. So you can see there are 4 different types. You have smithing stones all the way from smithing stone 1 up to the ancient dragon smithing stone. Then you have the somber smithing stones all the way up to the somber ancient dragon smithing stones. Then we have grave glovewort, which goes all the way from 1 up to great grave glovewort, and ghost glovewort, which goes from 1 up to great ghost glovewort. And so each one of these things is used for upgrading different stuff. The smithing stones are used for upgrading all of your basic weapons. Anything that's not a special unique weapon, you're going to upgrade with these, so they're probably the most important out of all of them. Then for your somber smithing stones, these are going to be for your special armaments, any unique weapons or legendary artifacts that you get from defeating bosses, or even just unique stuff that you find in chests. You're going to use somber smithing stones to upgrade that. The grave glovewort is used to upgrade your regular ashes, so your standard ash. These guys, so you can see we've got the nomad ashes, the ancestral follower ashes, things like that. Those are all your standard ashes. You're going to use your grave glovewort to upgrade, and you're going to do that at the round table hold. Then your ghost glovewort you're going to use to strengthen your renowned ashes up. So any of your really special, really powerful ashes, which are great for especially boss fights, you're going to need the great ghost glovewort. So you never should ever sell this. It's worth a lot of runes, but trust me, it's not worth it. There's limited amounts of these in the game, or at least for quite a few of them. Set locations to find these, otherwise you just have to hope that you kill enemies and they drop the right ones you're looking for. And they can be rare. So you can see for the ghost glovewort, I actually am missing one. I don't have any 8s. I've never once found a ghost glovewort 8. I'm sure it's just bad luck on my part, but so all of my renowned ashes are only leveled up to 7. All the ones that I wanted to level up, that is. I've never been able to go, even though I have the ones above it. So don't ever sell these resources. Keep them no matter what, because there are tons of things in the game that you will probably need to upgrade at some point. Number 9 in the game is really just simple advice. So it's listen to NPCs if they have something to say. Quests in this game are not spelled out like they are in a lot of open world games. This doesn't have a set, or at least I've never been able to find, a set quest menu where it explains things to you. There's no, there's no quest board. You have to talk to the NPC, listen to what they say, and then do that thing. There's not going to be map markers most of the time. There's not going to be super explained, like I said, quest descriptions that you're going to be able to find. So if you just skip through dialogue, you're not going to know what you're supposed to do. You have to stop, you need to listen to them, or at least do what I do, because I can read a lot faster than they listen. So if I'm in a hurry, I'll just read all the prompts, and then you need to do that thing. So a great example is one of the first side missions I found in this game was somewhere right around here, I think, or somewhere over here. And I ran into a guy that was sitting on top of a ruin, and he wanted me to go take back this castle for him. So I had to listen to him, and he said, I need you to go south through the Mistwood and retake my castle. He never said what the castle was called. There was no map marker put up. He never, there's no explicit instructions. You need to listen and then do the thing. So like I said, don't ever skip through the dialogue or you will miss very important stuff in the game. So tip number 10 is one that it did not take me long to figure out. Mounted combat is a game changer in this game. It makes lots and lots of stuff that would normally be probably very difficult extraordinarily easy, as it allows you to obviously outrun any of your enemies and keep your distance a lot easier. So like I said, especially early game, don't forget that mounted combat is an option, and it's a great option because it's going to really simplify a lot of your experience. As you can see, like I said, it takes a little bit of experience, but before long you'll be able to just totally cut apart giant groups of enemies. So that's number 10. Definitely learn how to use mounted combat. I definitely recommend using a spear or a glaive or something like that, because the sword's reach is not very good, but even with the sword, you can quickly learn how to do it. And with the double jump, you can avoid most attacks. So it's a decently safe way to grind out enemies early game. So tip number 11 is don't try ledge jumping in the open world. I know this is going to be tempting, and a lot of people, because this is the first From Software game to have jumping as a major feature and also to have an open world, you're going to be real tempted to try looking for alternate ways around to get to places. But this map is specifically designed to make it difficult to get places other than the way they intended. Don't try it. It's just going to be a waste of time. You're going to die, and sometimes you're going to end up losing your runes because of it. It's not smart. So basically, the best example I have for this is this right here. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out an alternative way to get here because I just couldn't figure it out. It looks simple. You're right here. There's a very small gap right there. There's also some like rocky ledges up above it. It seemed like it should be easy to get in there, and there wasn't any other way. I was able to isolate decently early on that there was a valley here, but there was no fast travel point. There was no way to get in there early on in my exploration. Basically, I ended up coming up through this well from an underground region. So that's the way that I ended up getting in there, and then you have access to the valley and you're able to get through to here. Don't try ledge jumping down. You're just going to waste time. You're going to lose runes. You're going to die. You're not going to get down or up to a place that you're trying to get to. Tip number 12 is one that I'm not personally a huge fan of because it doesn't fit into my playstyle, but it is true. Magic is by far the most overpowered and easiest way to combat in this game. Now, obviously, all enemies are different. Some are going to have weaknesses to magic. Some are going to be very immune to it. Some are going to be weak to just crushing damage or something like that. So definitely realize what enemy you're fighting and specialize it for that. But as a general rule, magic is extremely overpowered. Now, I played through this game as a knight. I tried not to ever use magic when I could use a sword to do that job, or whatever other weapon I was using. But there were a couple fights where I needed to resort to it and ended up using magic, and it made it a million times easier. So if you're struggling with the game, consider using it if you're not already. I know a lot of people start out with the warrior or the knight style of gameplay, but anybody can use magic, and it can definitely come in handy, especially against some of the game's harder bosses. So magic, again, that's just a general tip. Magic is probably the most powerful form of combat in the game. And number 13 is another general tip. Be careful where you swing your sword. Now, I already mentioned you can kill the merchants in the game. That's because you can kill almost everybody in this game. With very few exceptions, which just come in the form of like people who are in a place where you can't actually physically swing a sword because it's combat locked. An example of this would be like Volcano Man or the Round Table Hold. In those areas, you can't actually swing your sword, so you can't kill those people. But in pretty much every other instance in the game, you can kill the people there, whether they're friendly or not. You swing your sword at them and you can damage them. Now, mind you, they might also kill you if they're too strong. But in certain circumstances, like an early game quest I was doing, you can accidentally kill the person you're trying to help and fail the quest, and therefore not get your reward. So be careful where you're swinging your sword. Don't just go around willy-nilly, because you can kill pretty much everyone in the game, and once they're dead, dead, they're dead. That's it. They're not coming back. And unless they're a merchant or something, or they have a bell bearing, you will no longer have access to whatever they had to offer. So yeah, just be careful where you swing in your sword. And that is all 13 tips. Like I said, I designed these specifically to be useful to pretty much everyone, whether or not you've already been playing the game for a while, or you're brand new to it, or you've never even played a From Software game before. All of these tips should be pretty useful. So thanks a ton for watching. I hope this was useful. If it was, let me know down in the comment section, but we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching another Dare to Game video. If you liked this video, please leave a like and a comment. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you like my content and would like to support this channel, consider becoming a member today for as little as $1.99 a month. It makes a huge difference. But in any case, thanks for watching and have a nice day. I'll see you next time.